Bartholomew Town is brought to you in part by the University of Rhode Island Online, Navigant Credit Union, the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, Newport Film, and Half Street Group.
Bartholomew Town.
One of the most ironic parts about the new world that we live in, and it's really not a brand new world, it's something we've certainly had a taste of and we've been facing in a lot of different areas for a while now, but no doubt about it is this notion of anti-censorship. And, you know, you take a look at Elon Musk and, well, we're going to buy Twitter and turn it into X to try to eliminate or tamp down on what they describe as leftist censorship. All the while, this undercurrent that has actually made its way to out of the sub rosa and into really the general lexicon of everybody is this notion of book bans. And as if somehow, some way, all of a sudden in certain areas and certain topics, the freedom for an individual or a parent to decide what they consume has to be controlled by outside forces, be it the government or, you know, this sort of exo-governmental sphere that Elon Musk occupies. And that certainly includes book bans that have happened and are in efforts to do so here in Rhode Island. It's a nationwide crisis, and it's a bizarre one, no doubt about it. And with that in mind comes legislation, the Rhode Island Freedom to Read Act, that would, quote, I'm reading here from a press release, would make Rhode Island a safe harbor for book students, librarians, teachers, and book creators. Jen Lima is a North Kingstown School Committee member. Cathy Johnson is a local author, and each of them join us this morning to discuss this act and really the whole issue of book bans on a nationwide and on a localized basis. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
All right, let's sort of start from the scholastic position on this. Jen, you're certainly no stranger to fighting on a number of issues. I mean, we've talked about some of the nonsense around, you know, students who identify as cats and that sort of conspiracy, litter boxes perpetuated by local conservative media personalities. Just an embarrassing story where people lied and said that there were students who were provided a litter box because they wore cat ears to school. It's just bullying by adults that should know better. But how does this fit in, this whole broad book ban issue? How does that fit in right now to the broader conversation around schools?
I think it definitely does play in. And I think the fact that we're talking about having to implement legislation that protects librarians from doing their job is indicative of the whole, everything that we have seen. Like you said, it is entirely within a parent or an individual's decision what they want to read for themselves and what materials they want to have. But like when you start to talk about like what materials are available, you're then taking your worldview and implementing that for everybody else in the sphere. And that's not okay. And, we should have all materials available for everybody who wants to access them. And then each individual should have the ability to choose for themselves what they want.
The irony of this, again, sort of notion, one of the tenets that was critical, I think, not necessarily to MAGA as a whole, but sort of this neo version of MAGA that integrates tech bros and, this, I don't even know how to frame it. It's been difficult to frame what's happening right now, but we'll call it the Musk level of this current movement, this notion of, hey, everybody's got to get on Rumble or everybody's got to get on X because that's the only place you've got free speech. Meanwhile, this is the same force that's literally trying to go into schools and say, hey, wait a second, there are books that are helpful, informative in any way, shape, or form. Maybe they're not helpful or informative, but they're there for people who want to explore, be it gender identity or sexuality as a whole. And this goes beyond that. What else have you seen, Jen, in terms of the broad book ban? Because a lot of people think about books like Gender Queer, which was a target of, you got a couple of these. There's one guy, he drives around, goes to school committees. He thinks he's a newsmaker. He's really not. He's got no standing whatsoever. But he screams and yells at school committee meetings. This guy from Westerly. And, he drives around like this is his cause, his life's work. But in the reality, he's just kind of a buffoon. What else have you seen in terms of topics that are on the table here for being censored?
I think we're seeing, the same thing that if you look at the statistics, a majority, I think it's like 43% of books that are challenged are either by LGBTQ plus authors or authors of color, or like pertain to storylines that involve them. And I think that is very interesting because, a lot of times people challenge material, and I think material is subjective. What's okay for me is not okay for you. But there's only certain voices that are actually being challenged in that area. And it's not a blanket objection. And I think the other thing that's important to note is that I don't know what people understand about how, at least in a school library, and it's also in public, like books appear on the shelf. Like librarians are trained, they are educated, they are putting those, the materials that are out there are done, based on policies, based on their education. It's not, they're just not randomly going, oh, that book cover's pretty, I think I'm going to put it out there. And there is a process if somebody has an objection to a specific piece of material for their particular child. So if a parent is concerned with a material that is in the classroom, let's say, as part of the curriculum, because that's different from like a library supplemental material, there is an avenue, at least in North Kingstown, I believe it's the case in most schools, to address that particular challenge. So it doesn't have to be, I want the whole class not to read the book because I'm not comfortable with my child reading it. And, teachers will engage in that conversation. They will they will attempt to understand. They will try to explain why they feel it's important. And in the event that, the parent and the teacher or even the administrator aren't able to come to an agreement, an alternate assignment can be provided. So no child is being mandated to read a particular book that a parent is uncomfortable with. And as far as books in the library, like you said, they are there simply to be available to everybody, right? You have to have materials that appeal to different people, and those are not required. You're not being forced to check them out. And I think we need to trust in the librarians. We need to trust in the teachers that they are doing their jobs and not putting material out there that shouldn't be.
I'm reminded of Tom Nichols' excellent book, Tom Nichols of The Atlantic, The Death of Expertise. And this is just one other area where librarians, especially school librarians, are well trained. They're well educated on how to curate a library. And then all of a sudden you get some guy from Westerly that shows up and starts screaming and yelling at a school committee meeting with zero expertise, as if he knows more. And I'm also reminded in your comments there of, very basic things, like maybe we went to school with a student who was a Jehovah's Witness and therefore didn't celebrate holidays. And, that didn't mean that when an activity around a holiday came up, that the entire school or everybody was, or that student was required to acknowledge Halloween or something like that in elementary school. Accommodations can be made, and parental choice is certainly front and center still, even though some of these people, they'd like you to think that, when you send your kid to school, there's going to be an option on the table for that afternoon to go down to the school nurse and have a gender-affirming surgery without parental permission. Cathy, from the standpoint of an author, from the standpoint of a creator, what does an environment that includes censorship, state-mandated censorship, do to the approach that you take as an artist?
Bartholomew Town.
Birds are disappearing from our landscape at a rapid pace. Over 1/3 of those breeding on Audubon Society of Rhode Island's wildlife refuges are in decline. Climate change has taken a toll on their migration, nesting, and food sources. While science is highlighting the problem, Audubon is working on real solutions with a plan to rapidly reduce their carbon emissions. The organization will be free of fossil fuels by 2030, with renewable energy powering Audubon's buildings, equipment, and vehicles. To shape our future, all of us must act. Learn more about repowering Audubon, their avian research, and how you can join their fight for climate resiliency. Visit asri.org/repower. Newport Film screens the latest, critically acclaimed documentary films year-round across Rhode Island. Like a film festival, Newport Film often gets early access to films before they're available online or in the theaters. Stay up to date on their latest screening events at newportfilm.com or on Instagram @NewportFilm. Are you looking to advance in your career or explore a new field? The University of Rhode Island now offers a comprehensive portfolio of fully online programs designed to bring world-class education to you anytime, anytime, anywhere. Choose from a wide range of flexible, asynchronous programs in business and leadership, data, tech and STEM, healthcare and pharmacy, marine and environmental science, and more. With expert faculty and innovative courses, you'll gain the skills and knowledge to thrive in today's competitive world. Are you ready to take the next step? Visit uri.edu/online and discover how URI Online can help you achieve your goals. URI Online, learn anywhere with us. Half Street Group brings a new generation's perspective to leadership communication, strategic public relations, and digital marketing. Half Street helps organizations and leaders take control of their own stories and manage their reputations. They get results for their clients by focusing on audience, message, and culture, and by leveraging their decade-long relationship with media and opinion leaders in the Ocean State and throughout New England. Join me and Half Street Group founder and president Mike Rea for a conversation every month about news of the day, the hottest media analysis, and a look behind the scenes at how impactful leaders drive conversations. Learn more at halfstreetgroup.com. As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. Today, Navigant is a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org.
Hi. First of all, thank you for having me. So I'm not just an artist, but I'm also a teacher. So I'm actually also aware of what I'm including in my books of how to make things appropriate for my audience. And I would say that's probably true for a lot of authors, is that we are writing to a certain audience. And if it's a young audience, we make sure that we are including stuff in an appropriate manner. And I also think that's true from the publisher's side. Like the publishers are also like, there's many gates to make sure that things that get into a book are appropriate for the audience that it's being made for. Thinking about how this fear of censorship sort of affects us as creators, I think that there is a little bit more nervousness to include to create books for a diverse audience. Like I think like include creating books for students of color, for children of color, for children, LGBTQ children. Like these are, this is an important audience to make books for. And I think sometimes people get a little nervous including this content, but I think it is really important for everyone to feel seen by the books that they're reading.
Looking at the legislation right now, this is the Relating to Libraries, the Freedom to Read Act, and it's a diverse set of legislators that have put this in. I think a lot of people hearing this right now, especially detractors, would say, all right, well, this must be the most, I don't know, extreme left portion of the General Assembly. It's not, because this is a much broader and it's a slippery slope that we enter into. We've already seen erasure as a tool of the Trump administration with the use of language and the Orwellian memory hole type of approach on things like, let's just all of a sudden call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. So this legislation, it doesn't just impact the immediate sort of context of books that are LGBTQAI plus oriented. This is a broad conversation that can enter into a dangerous place. From that standpoint, it all comes down to oversight, and it all comes down to, I guess it comes down to implementation, but then also oversight. So Jen, as a school committee member, what role do you play in oversight to make sure that if this legislation is passed, that it's actually the governing principle of how school libraries are curated?
Can I just dovetail back to something that you said for a second?
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
It made me think of a news story that I saw this week, and you are absolutely right about, like, with what's happening now, to have to be concerned about the information that's actually being presented at us. If you look, like, you have the Associated Press being banned from the White House, right? I saw a news story this weekend of a woman literally being dragged out of a public meeting because she was trying to speak. So, like, the Orwellian, like you said, it's happening, right? And we need to be aware of that. And books, whether they are targeted targeted to diverse people, whether they are talking about factual history or whether they are just anything, are really at risk now. And most at risk with that are the people who are trying to do the work. We've seen the mass firings of the federal employees. Like, I know librarians personally who have been threatened, who have been, some of them, charges have been brought against them just for trying to have material available. And that was before we've hit the point we're at now, right? So it's not going to get any better, at least in the short term. So I think it's really important that people understand that this is not some like far off concept and why do we need to have legislation that protects it. Of course, you're going to be able to read a book. That's not necessarily true anymore. And it's a sad statement of affairs over there. But sorry, that was just it really, I think, is important that some of the things that we've relied on before, that information that's presented to us is kind of being chipped away very quickly. As far as school committees, like I know in North Kingstown, we have policies that govern the material that gets put in the library. We have policies that govern the material that's in the curriculum. And if there is a challenge, there is a laid out process for individuals to follow, right? It starts with there is a form and you have to fill it out and you have to advise, why you feel that material is not appropriate to be in our collection. The most important piece of that requires that the complainant or the challenger actually read the material, the entire book, not just one page, not just one sentence, not just one picture that they put up on the thing. And a few years ago, there was a lot of push, like you said, around genderqueer and, Diary of a Part-Time Indian and some other, and we had the people coming in with the big blow up books of the pictures and everything. It's really important, I think, to note that not one of those people actually challenged the book through the process. So, it's easy to kind of take one sentence out of a book and raise concern, but if you take it in the context of the whole book, it changes things. And that's why those procedures are in place, because the people who deal with the challenges are equipped to look at the whole picture and not just a piece of it.
That's right.
It's always pretty obvious when they haven't read the whole book.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, and I wonder also, from your standpoint, Cathy, as both sort of having kind of being on both ends of this, right? The creation side and then the educational piece, from a more morale standpoint, I know as a creator myself, I the First Amendment, but it's bigger than the First Amendment. It's really, it's an unearthly thing. It's an unknown, mysterious thing, creation. And anything that gets in the way of that puts a barrier between the creator, or I should say the kind of great mystery that serves the creator, and then the creator's works and giving it to people. I mean, that's a morale killer. What's morale like for educators and authors in an environment where you've got some of these people that, again, it's a small minority in a lot of ways, but they're loud, they call themselves moms for this or that, and they're just very much so in the neo-fascist category. What's it like having these people floating around while you're just trying to sort of super serve your internal consciousness?
I mean, I do want to give a lot of credit to the teachers and to administrators. I think generally they really, really want to make sure that all children feel seen. I would say it's very basic pedagogical practice to know that if a student is able to see themselves, is able to be represented, they learn better. Like, I would say that every study would tell you that. So I do think that schools are always going to be trying their best. I would say that they are definitely trying to be a little bit more careful with that. But I would say ultimately we want everyone to be able to express themselves and feel comfortable in our schools. And I think ultimately this idea that sorry.
No, all good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have been the victim of harassment from these book bans. I receive emails, I receive messages. It's been happening for many years. My book was on that list that Ron DeSantis made in October 2021, which is also the list that started genderqueer. A lot of this started October 2021. But like, really, ultimately, I'm not the real victim, and it's always going to be the readers. And like, ultimately, as we're thinking about this, the freedom to read is fundamental. It's a fundamental human American right. It needs to be protected by this by this Rhode Island Constitution. We need to make sure that everyone has this protected, no matter what books you want to read or what books you don't want to read.
Well said. Couldn't agree more. What's the status of the legislation right now? Anybody know?
I spoke with Morales yesterday on the phone, actually.
Oh, good.
So he has actually, let me grab my notes for this. He's going to get more reps on it tomorrow, or I guess tomorrow is now today. It's going to get an official bill number Wednesday afternoon, and he's getting more bill sponsors. And if any folks want to help support this, have people reach out to your representatives, and they're going to start backing it. And it sounds like that it is receiving a lot of representatives backing it, because it sounds like a lot of Rhode Island actually does want to protect our freedom of speech.
What's interesting, and I've made this point a couple of times here, perhaps sloppily, but I'll say it directly again, is that, there's this tendency for, we want First Amendment rights, we want freedom of speech, we want freedom of creative power, except for when it's something that we find to be, what we believe to be part of the quote unquote moral decay of society, or except when X, or except when Y. And these are the tenets that lead to fascism. And people hear that and they go, oh God, Bartholomew, here he goes again, it's going on and on. These are the micro strands that lead to fascist mentality. And that word is the appropriate word. I've used it in the past. I got killed for using it against some of these people. Oh, you're extreme. That's mean. That's not right. No, it isn't. We're seeing these are the seeds that grow into the manipulation of language and the manipulation of ideas. And it's selective. And because it's selective, it's suspect. And I think any rep or senator out there, and hopefully the governor as well, that hears this would say, you know what? We can't have a precedent where the state has the ability to, notwithstanding certain very much so obvious things, again, using that sort of Supreme Court definition of porn, which is problematic. There are certain things, should we have the KKK manual available at North Kingstown High School Public Library? Probably not. At the same time, hey, maybe we're going to end up in a place where it's all or nothing. And I would rather have all than to limit access to information for people who need it, deserve it, and also want it. Your thoughts?
And I actually do want to say, when we talked about people not actually reading these books, I do want to say, these books are appropriate. There are, my book is getting banned for a character who I don't know how many, he's on 5 pages out of 200. It has a transgender character who is not even a secondary character. He's a tertiary character. He barely exists in this book, and it just feels so ridiculous. I even talked to, there's a group of authors who support banned book authors, and they support each other. And it includes genderqueer, it includes books that deal with difficult topics. And I've had the leader of that group turn to me and go Cathy, I actually don't know why your book, it's a cute kid's book about soccer. He's I actually don't know what we can say about your book because its banning is so ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, and so that it just goes to show that what they're after isn't actually the book. It's not about the books.
That's right.
No, it's erasing certain viewpoints. It's erasing certain individuals. And I think it's also important to note that, we use the words banning in these conversations and everything. And a lot of things that I hear pushback on is, well, we're not banning the material because you can still buy it at a bookstore. You can still buy it on Amazon. We want to curate the library's collection. We want to make sure it's age appropriate, but that's the librarian's job, right? They are trained to do that, and they are curating their own collection. If we started having, parents or individuals being able to walk into the library, a school library or a public library and be like, what, I don't think that's appropriate for me. I think that you need to take it off the shelf so that it's not available to anybody. That is not, like you said, if it's a case of all or nothing, I would rather have all and have those conversations with my children, with myself. If I find a book that's upsetting or that I don't like, I'm going to put it down. I'm not going to say nobody should have access to this. I mean, there's that saying, free people read freely. And it is 100% true. We are a free people. We should be able to read whatever it is that we want, and people shouldn't be punished for making those materials available.
Yeah. I mean, I just see it as just like, you just got to be a total narcissist to have this position. It'd be like me, I'm vegan. So, what am I going to do? Turn up at every library and say, hey, do me a favor and get every cookbook that has anything to do with non-vegan food, be it meat or cheese or any animal product. I demand that be out of the library. I don't want that in here. And it's all about me. And it's all about my viewpoint and my worldview. And everyone has their own worldview. And if a person wants to, in their mind, erase a substantial part of the population because it doesn't fit into their little mindset of the world, well, they can do that in their mind. They have that place. That may be the only place that's real. If anything's real, we can get really spiritual and esoteric here if we'd like to. But at the end of the day, stay out of everybody else's way, especially these people who claim to be conservative. I mean, I thought it was good fences make good neighbors. I thought that's what, conservatism was about. It's not anymore. It's turned into, like I said, neo-fascism, and it's pathetic. And we've got some of these people in this state that are making fools of themselves, running around. Some of them are elected people. Some of them are unelected. And at the end of the day, who gets hurt in this scenario? The kids. That's who gets hurt.
And Cathy made a great point about how important it is and how educators and teachers and authors and illustrators are really trying to make sure not only is every child able to see themselves in their material, but, other people are able to see other viewpoints and other, experiences also. And, for all this talk about protecting children with trying to implement these bans or these curations, the children are actually being harmed because they're not having this information available to them. Like, I can't tell you, and I'm sure Cathy can speak for this better than me, the number of people that I have met who have said, I didn't know this until I read this book, or I didn't realize this until I saw it. And we are denying people that ability if we're restricting the material that's available.
Definitely.
And if you're thinking about wanting to, obviously, we want books for LGBTQ children. We want books for children of color, but also these are research shows that it is healthy for people to read about experiences that aren't their own, because this is the world we live in. This is the world that and it is good and is positive to learn about different ways of living your life, different perspectives, different cultures. These are things that benefit everyone to have a healthy society.
Couldn't agree more. Jen Lima, North Kingstown School Committee member. Cathy Johnson, educator and author. Ban books. It's just, we live in bizarre times that when you look around at some of the real issues that we face, climate, infrastructure, a shifting world economic sphere, a shifting workforce, and a need to train for the next 20 to 100 years, and AI and entrepreneurial ideas, so on and so forth. We got people focused on banning books from the school library because they don't like the topic. I mean, geez, we got problems, people. And this legislation might serve as a way for Rhode Island to take a leadership stance on this. Thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for stopping by Bartholomew Town. For more content, follow me on Instagram at Bill Bartholomew.